Conan, what is best in life?
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
That is
Barbarism is the natural state of mankind. Such is the premise behind Robert E. Howard's work of dark fantasy. First appearing in Weird Tales magazine in 1932, the stories of the titular Conan have captivated the imaginations of many. Set in a world where only the strong survive among monstrous creatures, sorcery, and war, the adventures of Conan serve as an icon for unbridled masculinity and human endurance. Although different writers have had their own artistic visions, Conan does have a distinct origin story. The son of a blacksmith, the barbarian belonged to a race of people known as Cimmerians. Born on a battlefield, Conan would be shaped by the harsh climate of his homeland and the warrior ethos of his tribe, possessing a muscular body and mane of long dark hair. A restless soul, filled with wanderlust, Conan would eventually leave his home in search of adventure and fortune, having become a skilled fighter upon reaching the age of maturity. The world of Conan the Barbarian is that of the Hyborian Age. This is not an entirely separate universe from our own, as many believe, but rather a supposed forgotten time from Earth's prehistory, shaped by a massive cataclysm. Spanning an entire continent, the land contains a range of biomes, from the rugged mountains of Nordheim in the north, home of the Aesir and Vanir, through the forests and plains, and finally arid deserts and the southern lands of Stygia, as well as the jungles of the Black Kingdoms. Much of the geography is comparable to the Middle East or Europe of our reality. Sharing an unstable border with Nordheim, the mountainous region of Cimmeria is known for its cold climate, dotted with forests and misty valleys prone to rain, fog, and icy winds. Largely devoid of resources, this land has produced a hardy people known for their fierce sense of independence and tradition. The god Kron is the predominant deity of the Cimmerians, a grim figure that watches the world from his mountaintop domain. Kron eschews worship and prayer, not granting his followers an afterlife, rather bestowing strength upon those mortals he deems worthy. Interestingly, the inhabitants of Cimmeria are descendants of the lost kingdom of Atlantis, which served as the backdrop of Robert E. Howard's earlier works that followed the adventures of Call of Atlantis. To the west, Pictish wilderness extends down much of the Western Ocean's coastline. Many monstrous creatures thought long extinct elsewhere can be found here, such as saber-toothed tigers and giant serpents. A menace to Cimmeria and the more civilized kingdoms to the south, Picts are known to be extremely territorial and engage in guerrilla warfare, often conducting raids into neighboring lands. Primitive, tribal people, they seem to possess shamanistic knowledge of nature and worship eldritch entities that predate the Hyborian Age, such as the Lord of Beasts, Jabal Sag, making this region a source of mystery. Aquilonia takes the place of the western continent's foremost superpower. To the immediate south of Cimmeria's border, its advanced culture stands in contrast to the barbarians of the mountains, made possible by its fertile soil, key trade routes, and vast military. Many deities are worshipped here, but Mitra is the most popular as the god of light, order, and civilization. Among the nation's several large cities, it is Tarantia that serves as Aquilonia's opulent capital. Though it may be formidable, the kingdom is not immune from external threats or political intrigue from within, and would one day allow Conan himself to claim the throne as king of Aquilonia. Not without rivals, the neighboring kingdoms of Numidia and Ka also influence the economy and politics of Aquilonia. Numidians consider themselves as the more erudite of the two, with a stronger value placed on philosophy and art, as well as impressive architecture and a formidable military. Further south, among the minor kingdoms, Koth sits as a wealthy, if decadent power built on the ruins of the fallen Acheron Empire. With a diverse population, Koth forms a melting pot of cultures, relying largely on mercenaries for its defense, and tends to be prone to corruption at the highest echelons of its society. Acting as a barrier between the northern and southern lands is the Desert of Shem. Not unified by a single authority, Shem is a culturally diverse area of various nomadic tribes and independent cities, such as Kish or Eric. Conflict sometimes arises between these two groups, and Shemites are sought after as mercenaries due to their skill as archers and horsemen. Due to its location, Shem cities have become wealthy from trade between the northern lands and its southern neighbors. Past the arid desert city-states of Shem and across the river Styx is the ancient land of Stygia. While this nation may not hold a particularly impressive army, it projects fear far beyond its border with its reputation for sorcery and dark arts. The demonic god Set is highly regarded here, with snakes considered holy creatures, and human sacrifices routinely carried out by cult members. In fact, Conan once ran afoul of authorities here by killing a sacred serpent. Outsiders are often viewed with derision, as infidels prone to being taken as slaves. Stygia could be described as a theocracy, its many desert tombs from ages past steeped in mystery and occultism that tempt adventurers from across the world with their secrets. Bordering the Viliate Sea and Hyrcania to the east exists the superpower of Turan, its landscapes consisting largely of steppes, mountain ranges, and plains. Turan's ruler is known as the Shah. A strictly hierarchical society, the Shah holds absolute power and rules by divine right. Erlik is perhaps the chief deity of Turan, a god of war and the underworld, with his influence evident in the nation's fearsome military. Although they often trade with their neighbors, Turanians have expansionist tendencies and often seek to conquer surrounding lands. To the east of the Hyborian continent, past the mighty kingdom of Turan, across the Viliate Sea, and over the mountains of night exists Kitay. Its borders marked more so by physical boundaries than actual cartographic ones, Kitay is shrouded in legend. Locked in a perpetual state of conflict with neighboring Kambuja is a land known for powerful wizards that vie for mastery over the arcane arts. A rigid caste system is the foundation of Kitayan society, with justice meted out by juries appointed by city overlords. Those that follow their appointed role in society believe they will be rewarded by the gods. Known by foreigners for being polite to a fault, the people of Kitay often use this as a veneer for treachery. From cruel warlords to dark sorcerers, Conan has met his share of foes during his adventures. Conan's enemies often represent the corrupting influence of civilization as a contrast to his barbaric nature, as he relies on his wits and sheer might to prevail. That is not to say he does not also face off against ferocious beasts or undead monstrosities, often motivated by glory or wealth rather than ideals of chivalry. Hailing from the lands of Stygia, it is Thoth-Amon that acts as Conan's primary antagonist. A high priest of Set and Lord of the Black Ring, among other titles, Thoth-Amon wields sinister magic and the ability to summon demons to serve him. With a gaunt appearance, usually clad in the robes of his station, his meager frame belies a cunning mind with an insatiable lust for power. Thoth-Amon's relationship with his deity also grants him control of serpents, often using them as spies or guardians, as well as the ability to teleport, astrally project, or magically shield himself. Much of Thoth-Amon's power relies on the serpent ring he wears, acting as a link to his god. Seeking ancient artifacts or imposing the will of Set's cult is what typically brings the fanatical high priest into conflict with Conan. Although the Acheron Empire may be a thing of the past, Many of its remnants persist into the current Hyborian age. It was this long-lost era that gave birth to Zaltotan, a powerful high priest of Set, able to return from death and wield ancient magics forgotten by time. Using an artifact known as the Heart of Ahriman, he was able to cause natural disasters, create illusions, and to animate objects when serving as a mystic for the Acheron Empire. Mastery over death itself has made Zaltotan adept at necromancy, allowing him to raise and command undead creatures to do his bidding as he seeks to restore his civilization. A victim of jealous priests, Zaltotan had been mummified for thousands of years before being freed in Belverus. Attempting to resurrect the corrupt civilization of Acheron has put him at odds with Conan, who values freedom above all else. Among Conan's more esoteric foes, the Dweller in the Deep proved to be a powerful and otherworldly evil. Residing in a stagnant pool far from civilization, the Dweller's a primordial being that predates the kingdoms of Hyboria. Although its entire form remains unknown, the creature possesses tentacles that extend from its lair, with its body seeming to be an amorphous mass. Using these appendages to drag its victims beneath the surface, the Dweller's true power lies in the magic it can conjure to summon hallucinations and induce madness. Realizing that brute force would be useless against such a foe, Conan utilized fire to force the Dweller from its pool, reasoning an aquatic beast would be susceptible to such an attack, and then used the surrounding terrain and traps he had prepared in order to defeat it. Not all enemies must wield magical powers or even combat skills to present a formidable challenge. A corpulent man grown soft on a decadent lifestyle, King Numidides of Aquilonia served as a symbol of civilization's corrupting influence. Living a life of feasting and pursuing carnal pleasures, the king neglected his duties as leader or ruling his people tyrannically. Not blind to his unpopularity, King Numidides became paranoid and reacted violently to anyone he perceived as being a threat to his rule, ordering executions, tortures, and property seizures. Disgusted by the incompetence and oppression of the soft ruler, Conan joined a growing rebel movement against him. Leading a group of nobles in an attack on the royal palace, Conan slays Numidides personally and eventually became the ruler of the nation himself. Far more savage ruler, Zogar Sag, reigns over the domain of the cannibalistic Black Ones in their island home. As a powerful witch doctor, he is adorned with body paint, trinkets, bones, and ritualistic scarring that make him an imposing figure. Particularly, Zogar Sag's gaze was said to be unusually piercing, cementing his air of authority and possibly indicating a link to darker forces. Although Zogar Sag possesses profound knowledge of the natural world, such as herbalism alongside his cunning, he also seems to wield a sort of primal supernatural power, not unlike that of the Picts. Being a territorial of their island, Zogar Sag and the Black Ones sought to kill Conan after he found himself shipwrecked there after a storm, pitting the two against one another as different forms of barbarism. With its tendrils extending across different nations, the cult known as the Black Circle plots its schemes from the shadows. At its head is the enigmatic figure known as Natok the Veiled One, a sorcerer with his visage perpetually hidden by a veil atop a dark robe. Seeming to radiate authority, he conducts himself with a stoic demeanor, his voice cold and hypnotic. Like other magic users, he commands elemental powers and may also be able to summon otherworldly entities to serve him. The motivations and goals of Natok and the Black Circle are largely mysterious, leaving Conan to rely on his wits and allies when he encountered them in Afghanistan. A rival mercenary to Conan, Olgierd Vladislav once formed a temporary alliance with the Black Circle in his search for wealth and power. Rugged and stern in appearance, Olgierd is skilled with a variety of weapons and is knowledgeable in military tactics, hailing from the lands of Conan, as a former hetman. As the commander of his own mercenary company, he is known for his disciplined approach to warfare, as opposed to Conan's more charismatic and impulsive style of leadership. A cunning and resourceful man, Olgierd has earned Conan's respect as an opponent, with their paths first crossing when Olgierd found the Barbarian crucified by the warlord Constantius. Conan had originally been accepted into Olgierd's tribe of Zuagirs following the incident, only to banish Olgierd into the desert once the mercenary went back on his word. Conan's adventures carry him across the continent of Hyboria, leading him to encounter various cultures and individuals. Not alone in his struggles, the titular barbarian would form alliances, friendships, and even romance with the denizens of the land. Being a nomad, of course, would mean most of these relationships would only be temporary in nature. Among the noble rebels opposing King Numidides' rule, it was the patriotic Valerius that first sought out Conan's assistance. With a regal bearing, he commanded respect among his fellow nobles both as a competent leader and warrior to boot. Valerius saw the potential in Conan's bravery and skill, although he may have originally envisioned him as a figurehead as opposed to seizing the throne for himself. Less a fighter or leader, the scholarly Hydraeus has proven to be an invaluable advisor to Conan after he was crowned as the king of Aquilonia. While possessing some magical talent, the elderly Hydraeus' deep knowledge of the arcane and the history of Hyboria is unmatched. A priest of Asura, Conan won his favor by tolerating the worship of the foreign god after taking the throne. It was during the Hour of the Dragon storyline that he truly shined, with the return of Zal Toten forging a partnership between the intellectual Hydraeus and mighty Conan. Not alone during his adventure in the exotic Black Kingdoms, Conan would cross paths with the tribesman Juma. The two would go on to form a friendship, with Juma's skills as a warrior and sense of independence complementing Conan's own. Juma acts as a guide, possessing an in-depth knowledge of the Black Kingdom's treacherous jungle terrain, as well as local customs. Together, the pair are able to face witch doctors, monsters, and hostile tribes. No stranger to romantic entanglements, Conan has bedded a series of women during his journeys. Belet, the queen of the Black Coast, would be one of the barbarian's first loves during the story of the same name. An alluring, lithe woman with dark eyes and hair, Belet exuded sensuality while at the same time being prone to passionate outbursts. The daughter of a Shemite king, leadership comes naturally to her, as well as fierce sense of independence that rivals Conan's. The first encounter may have been on the battlefield, but Belet quickly fell for Conan and took him into her pirate crew aboard her ship, the Tigress. They adventured together along the Black Coast, with the inexperienced Conan learning the ways of the sea. It was not to last, however, as Belet would be hung from her ship's mast by a ruby necklace that she had pillaged from an ancient city, one of the winged guardians having slain the pirate queen. Strangely, Belet would not be the only pirate queen that Conan would ally himself with. Taken as a captive in Zephyr, he would meet Zenobia, captain of her own pirate ship. Like Belet, Zenobia is a beautiful and authoritative woman capable of leading her men, if less prone to superstition. Realizing Conan's intelligence and strength, the two soon form an alliance based on mutual respect as they battle the Iron Shadows and the forces of Zogar Sag on Zephyr. Although Conan's attachment to Zenobia was never as intimate as it was with Belet, she proved to be an invaluable partner. The Red Nails story arc had Conan paired with the fiery-haired mercenary Valeria as they fought through the cursed city of Xuchotl. Originally on opposite sides of the conflict taking place, their shared attraction to one another and the dire urgency of the situation saw them form an alliance. A world-weary woman, Valeria holds a bleak worldview, although avoids betrayal or excess cruelty. The war around them had been raging for decades between the factions of the Teculiti and Zotalank, leaving them degenerate and aimless. Even among the senseless violence, Conan and Valeria found romance, albeit short-lived. In an age where only the strong survive, Conan has triumphed. Warriors, sorcerers, monsters, and kings have fallen before him, unable to withstand his might. Truly, in a world where barbarism rules, only a barbarian is fit to be king.
You're watching Excalibur Forge for gaming, readings, and more. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. Follow along on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.